The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Who you got? 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.
And you're welcome to episode 75 of the Racing Pod on Off the Ball. John Duggan with you. Johnny Ward's off this week, so I'm delighted to be joined by Thom Malone of the Irish Field. How are you, Tom?
Yeah, very good. Very good. It's been a brilliant couple of weeks, hasn't it?
You had a great few weeks. Your charity bets are winning, and you're kind of keeping our reputation, Johnny and my reputation, intact because you're winning and we're not. So well done.
I have kept it simple, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, Lulamba last week. I suppose at the time of recording, he was about 2-1, 9-4. That just looked a bit big, but he returned a much shorter price. So hopefully William Hill gave us the Friday price.
Now remember, folks, we're here every week with analysis, race previews, tips, stories, interviews, and the crack. The first half of the pod each week, remember, free to air. The second part exclusively for members. So be sure to sign up by going to offtheball.com/join. And this week for members, what we're going to do is focus on this weekend's Oaks and Derby trials. We'll also have Tom's charity bet looking for another winner. So subscribe now. So talking points, I think, Tom, we'll go through before we get into the races later on. And let's speak about the three big meetings we've had. We've had Punchestown, we've had Newmarket, we've had Chester over the last week and a half. So Punchestown, first of all, well done to everybody Punchestown. An attendance of 136,000 is up, 15% on last year. Over 42,000 there on the Friday for the champion hurdle. State Man beating Constitution Hill. Willie Mullins with a 19th title. Paul Tennant with a 7th title. Tiernan Power Roach champion conditional. The weather was beautiful. I was down there a couple of days. Well done, everybody, I would say.
Yeah, it was really magic. Look, the weather makes everything a bit better, doesn't it? And has done for the last couple of weeks. But just saw Punchestown, what the course itself delivered was incredible. I was down there as well. I was down there beforehand. We just had to put a bit of branding in for the Irish Field, and just the place just looked incredible. You can see as well, they constantly make little changes. Like, so I had that little bar they put by the parade ring now, just another little thing. So it just goes to show they're constantly working, constantly making improvements. Like, I know they've done it a few years now, but they've taken away the reserved enclosure altogether. So I think that means that there's no race course in Ireland that has a reserved enclosure. And you get to Britain, even an ordinary middle of the week day, and you have two levels of access for the same venue with no real benefits. You know what I mean? It just goes to show Punchestown just do things right. They listen to people, change the race times as well. They've gone from the every day being the later starts. They took all that feedback on board. Obviously, they've later on the Friday, and it's a different kind of vibe there. But as well as that, they got buy-in from the trainers and from the UK trainers in particular. I thought that was a great part of the week. All of those UK winners. I mean, maybe there's another conversation to be had about how we handicap horses over here, but really good to see the UK trainers coming over and having a cut. And just like A.T. Couleur at the Grand National in Fairyhouse, we saw plenty of UK handicap winners too.
I was getting a taxi from Salons and English voices asked me for directions, and there was a lot of English racegoers there as well because it's value for money.
Yeah, it is, just like the Dublin Racing Festival. They're two, and they've become two real destination events. Look, as well as that, because the English season finished the previous week, a lot of these jumps trainers could just really, and jockeys, just come over, pick up a few rides, really enjoy themselves. So the Bowen boys seemed to be on tour. Harry Compton came over, he rode out a few mornings as well. Like, obviously, less pressure and stuff like that. But getting that buy-in and getting those UK trainers and those UK punchers on the ground as well. And as he said, it's so much cheaper than Cheltenham or Aintree. Like, it really is. And it, as I mentioned, it's great for Punchestown to get rewarded because they've clearly put effort in. It's an enormous racetrack it's probably the only racetrack in Ireland that can genuinely handle those kind of crowds. So it's good to see them get them.
Galopin des Champs, 22-length winner of the Gold Cup, his 12th Grade 1, 3 Leopardstown Gold Cups, 2 Cheltenham Gold Cups, 1 Punchestown Gold Cup, 1 John Duggan, the horse of a lifetime.
Yeah, he is. The race was, I don't say it's handed to him, but he did. Look, he booked.
But he did what he did. He did what he does.
He did what he does, and they weren't able to kind of react to what Paul Tennant was doing. I don't know whether they didn't react or weren't able to react, but Punchestown is a front runner's track as well. So once you get a bit of momentum down the back straight, and you can sort of swing in, you're kind of. Very rare you're going to be caught if you're traveling well.
It wasn't the track with him, though. It was the track with him. It's not the track. It's about how sharp he is for the day.
No, and look, it's quite clear that that horse did not turn up at Cheltenham. You know, that version of Galopin Des Champs did not fire in the Gold Cup for whatever the reason was. And look, it's just great that he was able to come back and do it and show he still has a class, show he still has the engine. Yes, he is obviously vulnerable to a young upcomer, and I know the way you're thinking is a young horse, but he still has a crack. I can't, like, if you look forward to next year's Gold Cup, there's no way if Galopin Des Champs gets there, he's out of the three, is he?
Especially if it's softer ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wonder, do they continue to go to Leopardstown and do the John Duggan, or do they try to maybe campaign him differently for 3 Gold Cups? Also, a 12 Grade 1's Estate Man, probably the most underrated horse in the game, deserves a lot of credit when you look back at the Grade 2 Mile hurdle horses, because he's always turning up. I know he's had a bit of an in and out season, but to probably win, like, he was going to win the champion hurdle before falling, and then to beat Constitution Hill and all the others to win a Punchestown with the cheek pieces on, he's back to his best. Yeah.
And you know what? I think the defeats add to his story. I think they add to the charm. This notion that you have to go unbeaten to be a great is nonsense, because it's just like boxing. You know, you come up against these tomato cans, as they say, and it's kind of the same for Constitution Hill. You know, a lot of his early form stands up to scrutiny, but post that champion hurdle win, that form doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And he got a hiding, though maybe he's not the same horse.
You have to wonder if he's not the same horse, because like 4 runs in 2 years since that champion hurdle. You had 10 wins in a row, then a fall, and a 5th.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know whether these falls caused issues with his physicality or whatever, but I just wish they'd just thrown him over a fence after his champion hurdle win. Maybe it might not have suited him. Maybe at home they would have seen, you know what, this doesn't suit him. But it just feels like the last 2 years have been a bit of a mess with Constitution Hill.
Absolutely. And I feel like as well that they talk so much about him that they've talked themselves into this impossible position. You know what I mean? Like, you put horse, like, hold on. His supreme performance was one of the greatest performances in the Supreme. And this form stands up to scrutiny. You know, John Bond was second.
Champion hurdle was great.
Hurdle was excellent. You know, he kicked Statement out of the way.
But since then, it's just been hype. It's been more hype than racetrack appearances.
And even his win at Christmas, you know, when he beat Lossiemouth, the vibes around Lossiemouth, as Willie Mullen said, was beaten. We knew our fate after a furlong. He didn't kick her out of the way. I mean, she was coming back at him at the line. You know, he didn't get a, you know. And we have seen since that 2 miles on a flat track is not Lossiemouth's forte. It's 2.5 miles. And intriguing to see what happens with her next year. But look, again, you always fall in. You talk about Statement, you end up talking about Constitution Hill. State Man, I just love him. He's so tough. He's so genuine. He's so honest. Paul Townend clearly loves him as well, gets on with him. And I thought even the performance at Punchestown, because there's so much pressure on, wasn't there? Like, he really, you know, he fluffed his lines at Cheltenham, and then when he, you know, Lossiemouth came down when they effectively had a match at Leopardstown earlier on in the year. So he never got any credit for that after being beaten by, you know, he's beaten by Brighter Days Ahead when he's big as a bull. Such a great horse. And like that, and I love that. I love that he's come back, and like you said, there's no shame in being beaten. You've been beaten at the highest level. You've been beaten by horses that are, you know, at putting in their career best performances. And you've noticed that horses who go and beat him, I mean, it's difficult to go and back it up the next time, whereas he does go and back it up the next time.
Brighter Days Ahead beaten again by Jay de Grugy. Just on the flat now, let's get to Newmarket and Chester. And I was kind of wondering, is Newmarket in the, I suppose, target line, at the top of the target line for Ballydoyle anymore? Because no Guineas winner in the 2000 since 2019, and that was their 10th, and no 1,000 winners since 2021. And you're wondering, is Ballydoyle out of form? And then they go and they sweep the board at Chester during the week. So, like, for example, the 2000 expanded was 9th. Jessica Harrington's Green Impact was the leading Irish horse home behind the winner Ruling Court in 6th, I believe. And then the lovely 2-year-old from last year, Lake Victoria, was 6th in the 1,000 for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore behind the winner Desert Flower. I suppose the story, though, out of the Guineas at Newmarket was the fact that Kieran Schumark lost his gig. He was riding Field of Gold in the 2000, was holding on to the horse, didn't push the button. William Buick did on the winner, and he got beat.
Yeah. Look, William Buick's ride was absolutely exceptional. There's no getting away from that. Even when you look at the time analysis guys, he ran sort of 11.5 seconds almost on the number the whole way, which is like just perfect pacing for a mile. And as you mentioned, he just made his move at the right time. he got 2 lengths up on Field of Gold, and then, we'll see what happened from there. But like, Kieran Schumacher, I don't know. Look, the thing is, he's not everyone's cup of tea, is he? He's not. He's
not Frankie.
He's not Frankie.
But they're trying to replace Frankie with what?
Yeah, I know. I felt it was harsh. Did he give the horse a bad ride? He kind of thought he did, and obviously John Gosden thought he did. But I spoke to a trainer about jockeys, and before, this is a couple of years ago, and he's just talking about what, and I was like, and he would have had like all the greats ride from, and I was like, what's the difference? What's the difference? Like, because really, it's the trainer has the horse spot on if he carries out the instructions or whatever, and he's like, he always said that when the jockey takes the saddle from you, that's kind of when you know you're going to win. And you imagine...
Is that a confidence thing?
Yeah, like someone like Johnny Murtagh or Kieran Fallon. They're just... Like Kieran Fallon or someone like that's just a stone cold killer. Johnny Murtagh is going to go and make you feel 10 feet tall. He's just going to be like, here's what I'm going to do. This is it. I don't feel like when Kieran Schumacher steps into the owner, he's going to just get owners going... Today's going to be a good day.
Because he's not the exception.
No.
He's the rule, and to be fair to him and the other jockeys, most of them are the rule. Whereas you look at Ryan Moore and Mount Kilimanjaro at Chester during the week, was, even if you didn't like horse racing, Tom, you'd appreciate the unbelievable sporting skill to produce that horse on the line like he's done thousands of times.
Yeah, look, we're blessed. And look, I feel like we're underrated because we get to see Ryan Moore all the time over here in Ireland, and he's brilliant. He rides all these great horses, and he is exceptional, and he's one of the world's best jockeys.
Now, you've ridden amateur races. Is it that he just has the fractions completely in his head, and he knows where the line is?
It's everything. He's like, I think he I'm trying to think of the name of the horse last year for Joseph. Absolute monkey of a horse, and he landed him on the line. I think it was in the Cambridgeshire Handicap. Came from absolutely nowhere. Won the rides of the season, and he just kind of does that all the time, and because he's always on good horses, he's kind of underrated. I said this as well about Paul Townend. Like, as anyone is underappreciated as a talent as Paul Townend, as he said, 7 times champion jockey, 40 something grade ones.
Yeah, I
in
suppose
the
he came up in Ruby's shadow, but I suppose since Ruby has departed the scene, Paul Townend has now gone to another level.
Absolutely, but people talk about Davy Russell and Barry Garrity and Ruby Walsh like they never made a mistake, and like Paul Townend actually makes very, very few mistakes, and it just kind of doesn't seem to get the same love and respect as it. I
suppose because there's not 5 or 6 of them maybe, and they were kind of seen as a band.
Yeah,
possibly.
but even there was talk when Harry Cobden, and he gave Captain Cody a fantastic ride in the Irish National, and it's kind of like, oh, maybe he'll come over to Ireland and ride more. And I was like, what? And Jocko Paul Townend? Are you serious? Like, absolutely not.
No.
So it's, I just feel like even to, that would never be suggested about any other rider. I just think he just doesn't get the credit at all. The other side, the other thing, the other upside of the Schumacher thing from our point of view is that we'll probably see Colin Keane get more chances for Juddmonte. So he will fall into that best available bracket that John Gosden spoke about.
So you might be going a bit more on the plane.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Yeah. And his talents deserve it. He's multiple Group 1 winner, Grade 1 winner, brilliant ride in the Breeders' Cup last year. He deserves a big gig.
So it's Godolphin and Charlie Appleby and William Buick with Desert Flower and a ruling court of the Guineas. But then at Chester, Ballydoyle won everything when it comes to the middle distance races. So you have Minnie Hawk on the Oaks Trial winner. Lambourne took the Vase, is heading to the Derby. Mount Kilimanjaro, I've mentioned in the D Stakes. Illinois won the Ormond Stakes. So... And I'm looking for the entries for the French Guineas. It seems like a stronger pack than the Newmarket Guineas. Yeah,
it does. It does. It just feels like maybe Newmarket just falls too early for Ballydoyle these days. And they've had like August Rodin and City Troy absolutely bomb out in the last couple of years when they were, and they're obviously class horses, you know what I mean? And they're superstar horses, Derby winners, So I just feel like it doesn't fit into the Ballydoyle regime, and even coming into the Guineas, like a lot of Ballydoyle hot pots were getting beaten, and it's not something that Aidan worries about, because as far as he's concerned, particularly maiden winners and stuff like that, you get to have another crack at a maiden. It's more experience. It's all about. I actually spoke to him at the weekend at the Curragh, and for him at the moment, at this stage of the season, one of the key things is to get Ryan to ride as many horses as possible in the yard, so that, as he said, when the big races come along, I was kind of in my head going, well, it's the 2 Guineas were yesterday, and he's like, no, when the big races come along, he will know and he will have a feel for all of them. So as far as I can see, it's very much trial season at the moment for Ballydoyle. And once that kind of first week in June kind of comes along, they're really humming then Derby, Royal Ascot, Irish Derby, and then into the summer middle distance all age races.
But there's no City of Troy this year. There's no hype.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. And I would, and even
maybe that's not a bad thing.
No, and we kind of mentioned that. I mentioned that with Johnny as well. That like expanded. He was second favourite for the Guineas, and I was kind of saying, well, there's no. I was mad against the horse, and he did drift slightly on the day. But as I say, he's probably not in the top 3 or 4 horses by Wooten Bassett in the yard, and he was a single figure price for the Guineas. A horse that came in totally under the radar, and like as he said, with Ballydoyle, there's plenty of media mornings and stuff like that. We know to a point where their kind of aces lie, and it didn't feel like he was one of their stars, particularly from his form from last year. And it panned out that way. I wouldn't have anything against the horse or anything like it, and it looks like the filly's going to come back to the Curragh as well, and I imagine she'll be better for it. She ran well for a long way, probably just maybe blew up a bit, needed it. I just think Aidan's horses, give him another 2 weeks and they'll all be humming. Like
Delacroix is on I suppose the plate for the Leopardstown Derby trial on Sunday, and Wayne Lorden rides him, which means that Ryan Moore presumably is going to France for the French 2000 and 1000 for Henri Matisse, and maybe one of the 4 that Aidan has in the 1000. But Delacroix, I mean, the form has been franked now at Lambourne. The horse he beat winning at Chester this week, and this horse is a course and distance winner. He could be definitely one that's worth thinking about, folks, if you're looking at the Epsom Derby in a few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. The only kind of slight thing against him, it might be that he's by Dubawi. I don't think Dubawi's ever had a 1.5 mile Group 1 horse. Okay. But Dubawi's still one of the biggest sires in the world. I'm sure he will get one. He's out at Tep, and the new Ballydoyle methodology or Coolmore methodology that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. We buy all these brilliant mares, and then they can breed from themselves rather than having to go, to the yearling sales and fork out fortunes.
Is there a worry since Galileo's gone that they haven't really found the answer yet?
No, they haven't.
Sadler's Wells, the Galileo, back to Northern Dancer, that they always have this lineage to make them the top dogs. Is it all up in the air now?
Yeah, and really it looks like the next heir to that throne is Frankel, isn't it? Like, he's done it on the track, and now and he's doing it in the covering sheds as well. Look, Wooten Bassett's been a brilliant success for them, but they probably still need a standout 3-year-old. His covering fee is €300,000, $350,000 when he gets shipped around the world. So, he's certainly at that level. He had a brilliant season last year with all those 2-year-old Group 1 winners. We just need Ballydoyle or Coolmore just need one to really come out and do it as a 3-year-old.
And you just already don't know who that is. No. So something will come out of the woodwork in the next 2 to 3 years.
even those, like Henri Matisse, I thought it's great looking, and it's just maybe just didn't quite work out for him fully last year.
Is he going to win the Guineas in France on the weekend?
I thought so. I thought he gave I thought him and Camille Pizarro were 2 of the horses that really kind of stood out as not running nice trials. But I think Henri Matisse basically ran a trial in the trial to just sharpen him up for this.
So this is the favourite.
So just Delacroix as well. He's one of the very few who actually won his trial. And as you mentioned, that form's been franked. And as an individual and as a horse, I think he's an outstanding chance in a Derby, and I wouldn't be surprised if Ryan Moore rides him.
So if you got a free to air pick for the pod this week and it's not your charity bet, would it be Henri Matisse or would it be something else? Or?
Yeah, no, I'd definitely stick with Henri Matisse. There's a few horses at Naas that I like the look of as well.
We can keep under the covers.
We'll keep under the covers there. But I do like Henri Matisse for the French Guineas. And like I said, if Delacroix goes and hoses up this weekend as well, you'd imagine he'll tighten up at the top of the Derby market too.
Yeah, you're looking at the French Guineas here as well, 3:25 Irish time on Sunday. So Henri Matisse, a 4-1 shot with Hills. That's not bad, to be honest.
No, it's not bad, but it is that, on enemy territory type thing, and it is slightly difficult to win on French soil, even though they did it with the likes of, St Mark's Basilica and fellas like that. But it's not too often. Aidan doesn't dominate in France, but he is definitely, taking more notice of it, and it feels like France is more of a priority than Newmarket, and maybe it's just that those classics seem to be more stallion makers than the 2000 Guineas in Newmarket.
So he's drawn 6. He's a favourite 4-1. To be honest, seems an alright price for me. Hot as hell for Jess Carrington, drawn 2, but we'll get into that further in the members section. This is the Racing Pod on Off the Ball. If you're listening to the free version of the podcast, we're leaving you here. But But if you're looking for more, including the Oaks and Derby Trial previews at Linkfield this weekend and domestically and Tom's charity bet, go to offtheball.com/join to subscribe and get the full podcast with all our racing tips, insights and stories from the week's action.